technology has come from Formula One. At the age of 10, girls will have dropped out of STEM subjects in school. Wow, that's crazy. It's a wild story.
That is super fun.
I'm really lucky that I have this platform to drive those initiatives.
Yeah, I guess the best place to start off is a little bit about you and how you ended up at McLaren Applied.
I was working for a Magic Circle law firm. A call, not long, a few months after I moved to London, I got a call that I originally thought was a prank. It was our recruiter at McLaren Applied saying, "Oh, we've seen your profile online, we've got this role we think you would be ideal for. Would you like to chat to us about it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure,
yeah.
My brother." That's my brother having a laugh. And so yeah, they sent over and I just thought, wow, okay, this is happening. A couple of interviews later, they made the job offer at the end of the second interview.
You and motorsports and technology and F1, like, was that something that you were thinking about, or?
I mean, I had kind of half thought I would like to work in motorsport, but I wasn't really actively doing anything about it. And then obviously the role with McLaren Applied just fell into my lap, and yeah.
Okay, and so what like initially drew you to motorsports? Were you a fan? Was it Drive to Survive? You wanted to work in it, you had friends?
I just loved racing. Any kind of racing. Cars, boats, bikes, anything. I just loved the excitement and the adrenaline of it all. So obviously being somewhere like McLaren Applied, where we're known for motorsport. We do other things, but we are known particularly for motorsport.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's exciting. And getting to work across them, Formula One, Formula E, NASCAR, IndyCar, MotoGP, all the top series that we work with.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about actually what McLaren Applied does and how it ties into the wider McLaren group?
We are not part of the McLaren group. We were until kind of late 2021, and we were then acquired by Greybill Capital, who are a venture capital firm. So they've invested a lot of money, which has allowed our really clever people to start looking at new innovative technologies and really developing new solutions across motorsport, automotive, transport, and now into mining as well. It's wild. So we have taken the technology that originally was created for Formula One and are doing all these wild and wonderful things in it. So we are using... So if you watch a Formula One race, you'll see the pit wall. You'll see all the data coming from the cars.
Yeah.
So that's a product called Atlas that we own, and we are now using that on unmanned aircraft to measure methane in the sea.
That's crazy.
Around oil rigs, yeah. It's wild.
That's really cool.
Our solutions are being used in trains as well.
Nice.
The same connectivity stuff to make sure the train stays connected. You can pay for things with your card. There's Wi-Fi, things like that. So yeah, it's crazy. That technology has come from Formula One and is now being used across many industries. But I think for me, the most mind-blowing thing is the trains.
Really?
That's Formula One technology. If you're sitting on the train, and you're working or whatever, that's that F1 connectivity.
What has blown your mind since joining, about what actually gets done?
I think for me, like so many other people, I just hear McLaren and just think Formula One, racing, which we obviously are involved in terms of supplying a lot of products and solutions to Formula One. But yeah, I didn't realise how many other things.
Can you imagine you turned up and been like, "I'm ready for some F1." And they're like, "We don't do that anymore."
No, sorry. Absolutely, yeah.
I guess what misconceptions do you think there are?
Whenever I first came in, I did not realise how many different types of engineers there are. I had heard the word engineer, but I had never really thought about what it means. And we have so many people doing so many different jobs.
Really?
Hardware, software, mechanical, all different things. And I had, coming from the law industry, I came in with the preconception that stereotypical engineer was going to be like a stereotypical lawyer. I could not be more wrong. Those guys are fun.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, obviously they're really clever, but they're also, nobody fits into a real stereotype as such. Yeah, so for me, from a non-engineering background, that was the thing that kind of blew my mind.
What is your take on how the gender balance stands at the moment, both in what you're seeing at McLaren Applied, but also in what you're seeing more widely in the general motorsport space from what you've been exposed to?
There definitely is gender inequality there. I don't think we have it any better or any worse than anywhere else. I personally am lucky that I have been given the opportunity to drive equality pieces, be able to promote the idea of women in the workplace. So we recently sponsored the McLaren Applied Female Engineer of the Year Award.
Nice.
at the World Motorsports Symposium last year for International Women in Engineering Day. I hosted an event in MTC and we brought in some students. He introduced the students to some of our women from various roles throughout the business. So engineers, non-engineers. Yeah. We got our recruiter down, he gave the girls some career advice, blah blah blah. We also ran a competition then with females in motorsport to find ourselves a fifth attendee for that day, and some of the entries were just mind-blowing.
Really?
Yeah, oh, it was unreal. So I feel really lucky that I have this platform to drive those initiatives within, you know, different things, you know, writing articles, promoting the women who work at McLaren Applied, and celebrating women within the motorsport and engineering industries.
What do you see then, based on the solutions that you're implementing, as the key kind of barriers to entry, and how roles are mismarketed? Is it earlier than that because girls often don't watch motorsports? Is it because we don't see any F1 drive? Like, what do you see?
One of our STEM ambassadors actually told me really what I find to be a really shocking statistic, in that by the age of 10, girls will have dropped out of STEM subjects in school. And I just thought, wow, that's crazy. I have never had a technical brain, so it was never an option for me to go down the science route. My brain just doesn't work like that. But I think it's getting in and getting the message across to younger initiatives like Girls on Track and things like that, I think do a wonderful job. I used to be heavily involved in women's rugby, and I worked on a project which identified and broke down the barriers to women playing rugby. You know, why they didn't want to, some really, really simple solutions to problems that we didn't really know existed until we went to ask people. So I think, and there was a hashtag called Can't See, Can't Be. So I think that, you know, if children are being exposed to women engineers, women, you know, team principals, women, whatever, it just becomes normalised.
Well, it just looks like more of an actual thing that you think about. I think I was speaking to some other engineers, and they were saying, you know, when I used to think of doing engineering, it just didn't look like a career path. They just looked at this like white bald man with glasses, which isn't true, but she was like, I just never saw myself doing that. And actually, like, you know, engineering is unbelievably creative, and you know, this particular person had and also a really big artistic side, which you don't drive like artistic people into engineering. Everyone thinks it's like maths and numbers, and the fact of the matter is actually all of those is unbelievable. And it's just about mismarketed. It's that it wasn't that they can't or they don't want to, it's they don't even see it as an opportunity. It's not even on the roadmap, right? And I'm interested because as a fellow women's rugby player, when you did that analysis, what were the really simple barriers that you were seeing?
Really, really simple things like, I don't know where to go when I come to the rugby club, or I don't know where the changing rooms are, or probably a valid one to be fair, I'm afraid I'm going to get hurt, you know, things like that. I'm afraid the coaches are all going to be men and they're going to shout at me. So we were able to just break down these barriers by just having an open night. You know, somebody was there to meet people, you know, it was almost like a buddy system. The team were there, they could meet us, they could see we're not, you know, crazy people. Yeah, it was really good, and we had a really, really good recruitment piece out of that as well. And it was the same, I was the girls head coach, and it was the same trying to recruit teenage girls.
Really cool.
Yeah, but it's just, and it can be things that are so simple, you know.
That's the thing.
So it was just a matter of just going out and asking people, do you play rugby? No. Why not? Okay, you might have no interest, but there may be this one simple thing that I can fix.
Yeah, I remember when we used to do the recruiting for our team, and we were, you know, open fair for things, and people kind of going up to people, because we're not a sport, women's rugby is not a sport people just generally go towards. And I remember going up to girls being like, oh, like, you know, women's rugby, and they'd be like, no, like, it wasn't like, oh, I've played it and I don't like it, or I don't, it's like, I don't know much about it, but I know, like, I'm not meant to do it because I'm a girl, or like, it's really aggressive, or I'm going to get injured. And I know that girls that I had that came on board, that at the beginning when we started the season, they didn't want to tackle, they were like, I don't want to play in the game, and I was like, that's fine, like, it's about so much more than that. It's about the team, it's about appreciating every body size, because there is no right type of size for rugby. It's about having like a respectful and normal mentality. But the crazy thing was, is at the end of the season, these same girls were like absolute machines. Like, unbelievable, the change of just being like, I don't get hurt, like, I can take that person that's 3, and it wasn't because particularly they got any like stronger physically or anything like that, it's just mentally. And it was crazy how that applied across everything, how they dated men, how they saw their work, how they would speak up for themselves. And I think that's kind of why I got so passionate about talking about this, because I think in motorsports it's the same thing. It's not a concept of doing things that men do, it's just a concept of doing things that you never even saw as an opportunity, and then doing it and being like, oh,
Yeah.
I can do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. And like you said, it's all about that confidence.
Yeah.
I used to box a little bit as well. And when I won my first fight, I mean, that was, I just...
You're like, okay, I'm queen of the world.
Yeah, honestly, like it boosted my confidence so much.
Really?
And it was like, if I can go out there
Yeah.
and, you know, in front of all these people and fight and win a fight, I can do anything. Yeah.
And with some of the girls that you coached, and I guess some of them that were hesitant to go into rugby, is there anything that you saw that they told you after that was like a big learning for them, or a misconception that they had about, you know, the sport?
Absolutely. I mean, people think stereotypical women's rugby, you know, you're going to be massive, you're going to... Rugby requires players of all shapes and sizes to make up a team. So a lot of them, I was part of an initiative where we went out to schools and took the girls aside and ran them through some drills and stuff, and then brought them down to the rugby club. And obviously at that age they're not tackling each other properly, you know, they're not doing anything like that, but it's just getting them out, getting them running around, you know, seeing their confidence build. And I personally find coaching way more rewarding than playing, because you're seeing them grow. You know, whenever my girls team in their very first tournament came second, and I could have cried, honestly. It was amazing. And seeing them so joyful and just being like, oh my god, we didn't think we could do this.
Yeah.
And then we did. And also it's just seeing them grow, and when they're on the pitch and they're just getting it and they're doing things instinctively as opposed to having to really think about it, I was just like, oh, go on girls.
Bringing it back to you, not just about motorsports or F1, I think you've had an extensive career, you're in a kind of leadership focused position, you've made a big career jump. What do you think are like lessons that you've learned now that you would love to have told yourself 20 years ago that maybe you didn't hear from other women or even other mentors about, like, how you progress and what you're doing today? And
I would absolutely tell myself to have more confidence. Until very, very recently, I was always very shy and retiring and just not overly confident. I was always second guessing what I was doing. I always felt like I wasn't quite good enough. And at a place like Allen and Overy, where there are some horrifically intelligent, imposter syndrome is a real thing. And I mean, of course, I still, when I'm in McLaren Applied, when I'm going to have meetings with, you know, our engineering people, and I'm just like, you know, they make me feel like I'm just sitting writing with crayons. Yeah, it's definitely about confidence, even if you don't feel that confidence.
Yeah.
I did an accelerated development program within A&O, and part of that was leadership and around presentation.
Yeah.
And they were teaching us about the power poses. So, you know, if you're in, and I still to this day, if I have a meeting or something, I'll do my super woman for like a minute or so, and honestly, like, it sounds ridiculous, but it works.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, for me it was all about confidence, and I think whenever I was approached then by McLaren Applied,
You're like,
I was like, maybe I am okay at my job.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I also think it also comes from being a woman.
Yeah. Second guessing, guilt. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Am I good enough? Are they sure they should hire me? Like.
Yeah. And I don't, well, obviously I'm not a man and I can't speak for men, but it feels like a more common problem among women.
It is.
There's that phrase about, I wish I had the confidence of a mediocre white man on the internet or something. It's just like, I wish it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I guess, like, I guess it's this moment where you're like, oh, all these people are really smart around me. And then you're like, I'm pretty smart too, though, as well. And I think it's just believing that. And yeah, I think for me, I've always been in quite heavily male. I think I've had a pretty good run of it, but I've also had to be a younger woman, in leadership roles with male leadership teams. And I would say sometimes it's difficult in treading the line of being seen, unfortunately, like, as aggressive, but also very good at what I do. Yeah. I think sometimes no is okay. You're allowed to say no. Like, this is not a high priority, nor is it highly strategic. No. And if you think I'm stubborn or aggressive, like, I had to personally drop being liked by everyone to be able to do my job well.
Yeah. I also am a rugby club committee member once described me as the most aggressive woman he's ever met. I just said thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think he meant it as a compliment, but I thank
I'm
you
actually
very
going to put
much.
that on my bio.
Yeah, I'll pin it on the CV.
Yeah.
I'm the most aggressive woman this one particular man has ever met. It's like, that's great, but sometimes it has to be done. And I was like, am I aggressive because I'm a woman? If I was a man, would I be assertive?
No, exactly.
But I think at that point, whenever you're in a position like women's rugby, the men just don't get it. A lot of them are trying their best, and they don't understand that we're not men. We need to be treated differently to men. Setting up teams, you know, trying to get representation on boards and stuff. And sometimes, I mean, I would be shaking sometimes going in there, going into committee meetings and just being like, right, this is what's going to happen. Yeah. You know?
And then after, like,
and all these men are just like, who does she think she is? And I'm just, it has to be done. And I don't think they had ever come across anybody like me before, because I was, well, at the time I was young. I had a good job, I was single, you know, I wasn't doing the whole married with children, you know, I was in a rugby club bar like 3 nights a week, drinking, do you know what I mean? Drinking pints, and they're just like, what the hell is going on here?
But that's the thing, you're seen as crazy. You're not, I'm not. But like, it's unbelievable to me that is still, or like that we're still like, not we, I'm not gonna, but the word's aggressive. And then I start being like, am I a bitch? Like, is that like? And then I'm like, no, like I was totally entitled to say no. Yeah. I'm very good at what I do. Just because I'm young and just because I'm a woman, like this is the thing. Like someone once told me something really, really interesting, and they were saying, and this is in founders fundraising and how VCs look at like ask questions. Yeah. Men sell, and this is all statistics, right? Like men sell a dream. They're saying the upside, this is what could happen, like this is like, and women sell the reality. And the questions that VCs were then asking those men and women were totally different. Men it's like, what's the upside, what are we gonna do, like, and the woman was like, okay, but what are the risks, like what are the things? And it's such an interesting thing. I think as a woman sometimes you have to focus on the statistics, on the numbers, on the operations, on the detail, because that gives you the legitimacy to be like, this is why I'm doing this. Yeah. Which I actually see a lot of not all, but sometimes men are not having a plan, not having a strategy, and just someone being like, yeah, that seems good. And I'm like, you know, but female founders are more likely to mortgage their house than they're literally, to finance their business, they are much more likely to mortgage their house than take on the guilt of potentially having someone else's money when they don't know that there's guaranteed win. Jeez. Isn't that crazy? Statistically, that is what's happening.
That is wild, yeah. I think, it's just, for me it's all about details. I'm very detail oriented.
Right, because it's success, because you have to succeed. Or the moment you don't, you feel like all that legitimacy that you've built throughout your career, all that like confidence goes, because you're like, well, people are going to realize like I'm not actually good. But the thing is, like, you are good, right? And it's like having that mentality of being like, I'm so good, I don't make mistakes. And I feel like a lot of men are like, they do that. Like, I'm great, I'm not going to make a mistake, so they don't care. Yeah. But one thing I'll bring up on that is, what do you think about this stance that women are having to act like men to get a seat at a male table? So for example, I talk about rugby when I meet male counterparts. I talk about sports. I'm pretty sure my voice drops a little bit. Like I do think like I'm a 60-year-old white man, like let's talk. I don't dress like one because that's the thing, but I caught myself and I was like, oh, is this right? Like, why, like, do I need to do this, or like, am I being myself? I don't know, but will I get hurt if I don't?
I absolutely agree, and I also have done the same thing.
Really make yourself wide.
Just take up space
so I can't fit through the door.
Absolutely. And it's even things like your posture, or if I am going into a challenging meeting or whatever, I'll sometimes wear heels in the office. So I mean, I'm 5'8". I mean, I'm pretty tall anyway, but if I'm 6 foot, and it, in my experience, it changes how people react to you. If I'm standing eye level with a man and I'm doing my power pose, you know, like it's not that I'm trying to be intimidating, but you know, you're taking up space, you're there, you're visual, you're given a more masculine energy, I think.
Absolutely.
But on the other side, then sometimes those male dominated environments maybe do need the woman's
Yeah.
touch. They do need somebody to look
Yeah.
into the detail or show a little bit of compassion or
Yeah.
something like that. So I mean, it can work both ways.
Who do you see as the unsung heroes around you, like in the area you work with, or any people that you find quite inspiring in driving change?
Oh, interesting. McLaren Applied, obviously, we are a very innovative firm, so there's not a single person. We are all really dedicated
That's
to driving
amazing.
change. I'm really, really passionate about equality in all shapes and forms. And whenever I'm coming to my superiors with ideas, can I do this? Can I do this? Yes, brilliant idea, you know, and they're so open to
Amazing.
the things that I suggest, you know, like Female Engineer Award, some of the schemes and initiatives. I've got a few more things in the pipeline
Amazing.
that I'm crossing my fingers and hoping I can get off the ground. But yeah, it's great and it's a collective. It's not me repeatedly banging my head off a wall.
There's
going,
push and pull.
we need to work on equality, and even internally. So I have worked with one of my colleagues to set up our disability network. We are now working on setting up an LGBT network
Amazing.
internally. So yeah, it's great, and everybody is so happy to be on board because I think they realise that we need to keep driving. It's a collective, it's not one particular person.
Yeah, no, totally. And then I think from the solutions perspective, I mean, you obviously got a lot going on, you're trying to solve it in your way. What do you think are right now the most important solutions? Is it that education piece with young women? Is it setting metrics on recruitment? What do you think is important?
I think in order to deliver solutions, we need to really, really understand the problem. We need to be speaking to women, we need to be speaking to girls, potentially educators at like primary level, to really understand how, I mean, I've mentioned that statistic before about how
Yeah.
girls fall out of STEM at age 10.
Yeah.
Why? Like,
Why?
yeah, like what? Like, can
Yeah.
we speak to these girls and ask, why do you not want to do this? What's the reason for this? So I think the whole can't see, can't be thing is really important as well.
Yeah.
And I know that there are women in those positions who, you know, really high profile, they're everywhere, but it needs to be normalised in kind of day-to-day life. They need to be seeing female engineers on TV.
Yeah.
They need to be
Yeah.
meeting them.
And hearing their story,
Absolutely,
how they got into it, because it's
Yeah.
not a clear path.
Yeah, I mean, I have a fantastic team of STEM ambassadors who go out to schools and who do things like that, and we are always trying, obviously, to get more of our women engineers out there doing it. But yeah, it's a work in progress, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all coming. I think that's everything I have. Thank you so much for, I think, sharing your story and also sharing what you see as the problems and the solutions and tangents on women's rugby and all these bits and pieces. But it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you.
Thanks for having me.